Alrighty, all welcome back to the G-Man Show. I'm your host, G-Man. Today we're talking about the economic roundtable. There's a good few rants happening on Sky News at the moment. I know some of you like Sky News, some of you don't. But I like it because it is more business-centric than the other mainstream media outlets. Let's jump into it and have a rant, as always.
The government's economic and productivity roundtable continues in Parliament House, Canberra today. There are no cameras allowed. There's no recording of the proceedings. The participants are not even allowed to have their mobile phones.
That's it. Open transparency, guys. Open transparency about what they're going to do with all of our taxpayer dollars. How are they going to tax us more? What taxes are they going to come up with? That's why there's no cameras and phones in there.
Hey, so the National Senator, Matt Canavan, who before Parliament worked for the Productivity Commission, decided to set up his own roundtable, a real roundtable he called it, which was broadcast on Sky News today. And many were waiting to hear from Canavan's old boss, Gary Banks, the former chairman of the Productivity Commission, who laid bare the reasons for Australia's economic regression.
And so what we're observing is firms that can't compete anymore because their costs have gone up, either because of energy or because of industrial relations arrangements that make it hard for them to do what they need to do. So once you're in that dilemma, I mean, we're at a situation where we're trying to lift our economy up by the bootstraps with lead in the saddlebags, if I can cross all my metaphors.
Yeah, but you know how you fix that? I know exactly how you fix that. You just tax them more. Because that's what's going to happen. Especially the small and medium-sized businesses. The government's got a massive hard-on for them. As I said, there's no coconut oil going around at the moment. It's just bend over, cop a hand of sand, and take it.
Senator Matt Canavan, who organised all that, joins me now. Matt, thanks for that. Did you get anything concrete out of this that government could and should do right away to improve Australia's productivity?
Yeah, look, I think we did. In general terms, the simple message, I think, was that if we want the Australian economy to be bigger, we need the Australian government to be smaller. There is too much involvement from Canberra in the lives of businesses, the lives of ordinary Australians, in our energy markets, and that's causing these issues. There were a number of key takeaways.
I'm all about that. So let's read them out. Ending bracket creep. Absolutely. So when was the last time the brackets were changed? They were changed very, very minuscule, in a very minuscule nature, or 2 or 3 years ago, to keep the punters happy, thinking, look, the government's helping you, they're giving you a tax break. But what about all that tax creep, that tax bracket creep that you'd been experiencing for the last 10 or more years before they adjusted them previously? Because the tax brackets are not adjusted for inflation anyway. They set them up to be this way. So the more you earn, the more people fall into higher tax brackets and the more revenue the government generates. It's actually genius, or ingenious, really. It really is. Oh, but what are you talking about, G-Man? In 2023, they changed the bands. Okay. If you really think about it, that 180,000 band, it's now 190,000, which is the upper band that maybe 10% of the population might earn over. I don't know, I'm just taking a punt. That band was at 180, that was put in, 10, 15 years ago, maybe more. Think about what that'd be now. It'd be double that with inflation. If not, at the very least, 50% more. So it should be 300 grand, not 190. Oh, yeah, we're helping you out, everybody. Tax cut. Yeah, good on you. Good on you.
Takeaways there that we discussed.
Limiting NDIS to profound disabilities. Look, I don't know too much about what disabilities are covered, but I know there are some scrupulous operators taking the absolute piss out of it. You got as part of treatment as well, people with certain disabilities are able to get prostitutes and charge them back, get a release, get a prosy and charge it back to the NDIS. Fantastic use of our taxpayer money. But if anything, I'd rather a bit of a battler gets a route from a prostitute instead of giving my money to inflate public sector wages, those specifically are politicians. So if you got my vote, get a guy a route and pay for it with your taxpayer dollars, or give politicians a pay rise. The guy's getting a root 100 times out of 100. Scrapping net zero targets. This is my opinion, and I know there are a lot of people who change it, who not change it, who will carry on a bit in the comments and say global warming and all that. I'm not saying that doesn't exist. I'm not a scientist, so I'm not even weighing into any of that. There are people out there that say it doesn't. There are people out there saying it does. If you really think about the net zero target and emissions, I think it's very much virtue signalling from Australia that's very much stifling the economy and making it more expensive for business to operate and for us to have electricity, power, gas, whatever they're going to do. Think about the percentage of carbon emissions that would be from Australia in the population of the world when you've got India and China and Vietnam and Thailand and all that not adhering much to that stuff at all and producing heaps. So to me, it doesn't move the dial. Doesn't move the dial, and it's at a big detriment to business. Removing coal and nuclear bans, I'm behind that. I'm behind that for the above reason that I was speaking about. I know nuclear is the boogeyman, and everyone's scared of it because there have been a few incidents or accidents that have happened over the last, say, 50 years. You probably count them on one hand. I can understand that sentiment, but that's a scare tactic that's used. But for the most part, nuclear energy is efficient and clean, unless there is a radioactive Chernobyl incident, once in a lifetime type thing. Cutting government spending by 4%. Let's make that 40%, and I'll be a bit more happy. 4%. What they should be doing is culling the public service. I've had quite a bit to do with the public service in my previous corporate roles, being a contractor / consultant. And I can tell you now, a lot of those roles aren't needed. There are a lot of dead wood in there. There are some absolute guns, but a lot of dead wood being funded on the public purse, who wouldn't be able to exist in private business, wouldn't be able to get a job, wouldn't be able to keep the job.
This morning, I think we've got to limit government spending. There was a target of reducing it by 4%. As I said in the room, we actually have increased annual government spending by $300 billion a year since COVID. So the budget before COVID was $477 billion a year. Today, this year, right now where we sit, we're going to spend $788 billion a year.
So in other words, all those people who are employed paying all that tax, more than 50% of the government's revenue comes from PAYG taxpayers.
Yeah.
So all of that money that's come in, what you're saying is not produced productive outcomes for the Australian economy.
Well, I think that's for the Australian people to judge. Judge it yourself. That extra $300 billion a year, that amounts to $30,000 per household, or about 10 million households in Australia. So about you're paying, or your government is spending on your behalf, which you'll have to pay back, $30,000 extra a year. Do we think we're getting $30,000 a year extra in value in better government services? Absolutely not. So that
spot on, Cano. We'll call him Canavan the Caravan. Good old Matty boy. I'm with him. Put this bloke in. But, you know, this is what people say, and then they get in and, all this sort of posturing. This all goes away and they fall back into government. They fall back in line with the agenda.
Target that David Pearl suggested of reducing the size of government by 4% of GDP, that would mean slashing about $100 billion off government spending. Well, I think that's achievable because we've increased it by $300 billion. Yes. We've gone like here in 7 years. We ended JobKeeper, we ended all this stuff that we had to do during COVID, but we stayed up there. Maybe we should just come a little bit back.
Well, let's have a listen to what David Pearl had to say, who used to work for Treasury. Here's a little bit of him.
The truth is that we have deliberately chosen the economic purgatory we inhabit. I want to say that again. We've deliberately chosen it. It's not an act of God. It's not an accident. It's not due to the 24-hour media cycle and gutless politicians. We chose it as a society. Back then, the rallying cry was protection for all, justifying an economy-wide network of tariffs, quotas, subsidies and price rigging. Today, we impose those very same policies under the banner of net zero.
So David Pearl is talking to the old days of when we had tariffs and high barriers and compare that to today, where he believes that many of those barriers are now coming on.
Yeah.
It strikes me also that, like, if we had an election next weekend, it's odds on the Labor Party would win and win probably pretty comprehensively.
I can't understand that. That's the thing. I know that my channel could be a bit of an echo chamber in the comments and all that sort of stuff. I don't know anyone who voted in Labor or thinks they're doing a good job that's openly admitted it. Now, I'm not insinuating anything here, but what I'm saying is how are they going to get in again? With this, they've only been in a few months and the joint's going downhill quick. Things are getting more expensive. They're bringing in more taxes. But I guess the bogans on the Centrelink on New Start with no teeth in Moe, sitting in a caravan, smashing back beers, punching mannies all day, they're happy because they don't understand it. So let's vote Labor. But people who are trying to get ahead in their life are fighting some very strong currents, swimming against it and not feeling like you're getting ahead at all. You're treading water a lot of the time at the very best. Yes, some people will not even understand what I'm talking about. They may be not feeling the strain of the cost of living that's going on and all the other shit that's going on. But if you could zoom out and look at everything that's happening, the way the economy is, the way we're being taxed, taxes after more taxes to make up the shortfall, why would you vote them back in? Why? Tell me why. Put in the comments. And I'm going to get someone saying, well, G-Man, you're blaming Albanese and you're blaming whoever the last Labor person was. It actually started off with John Howard and Gough Whitlam and let's just worry about now. Let's worry about 2025.
So the reality is for the ordinary person, for a business person, to try and get this message through that the economy is going to struggle in the future under the current weight, that's a difficult message to have to try and sell, isn't it?
Yeah, no doubt. I'm thankful the election's not on next week, Ross, because you're probably right. But that's our job now over the next few years to make this case. And I also think my job as an Australian senator is to try and highlight these challenges and confront them before the train wreck occurs. Because I do think our economy is hurtling down a pathway here where it could look fine for a while and then suddenly it's off a cliff.
Okay,
and so we're facing this week, you've seen 3,000 jobs lost at CSL.
Yep.
We see the rise of AI. We see earnings fall for BHP, Woodside. There is a certain drumbeat here that things aren't going that well. And we'd be much better off fixing those issues while unemployment's still got a 4 in front of it and our economic growth is still positive, rather than in a year's time, if we're sitting here worried about people losing their jobs.
What are you talking about? Worried about people losing their jobs? I know quite a number of people have made redundant across various sectors. Things are tough out there. The media isn't reporting on it. A lot of businesses, small and medium size, even large, they're shedding staff. They're on life support. A lot of these places, getting rid of people purely on a dollar's perspective, not because those people deserve to go, because they can't afford it, because business is drying up. People aren't spending money. And people aren't spending money. There's not much business, is there, to justify having people employed. It is absolutely happening. Absolutely happening. Put in the comments if you've been made redundant or you're a job seeker at the moment. Go on Seek or go on LinkedIn and a job will be posted, right, for a day. It'll say over 100 applied. In a day. What are your chances of getting that job? Pretty bloody low, let alone your resume being read.
The government in more debt, what do we do then? That's
do
much
you think
harder.
that's the inevitability of what happens if we continue down this path?
Well,
because what you can see is government getting bigger and more people now rely on government or government policy for their jobs. They're almost beholden to the government to stay in power.
Well, look, it's probably not as certain as you having to pay taxes in the next year, but it's not far behind. That if we continue to have this stagnant productivity performance, in the last few years it's fallen off a cliff, if that continues, we're going to suffer a major economic shock of some kind. We're going to have a reckoning. There'll be an economic reckoning of all the debt that's been built up over the last 20 years, both public and private, that can no longer be serviced if we don't have a strong growing economy. We've been able to...
That's right, import them. Import our little taxpayers. That's why our mass migration is so high. Why? They need to import revenue to keep servicing this debt. Desperation, debt junkies. All right, I'm going to move on to the next video. All right, so this one's called Chalmers Does Not Understand the Consequences of Labor's Economics. This is going to be a good rant. Consider subscribing to the channel. We'll take a quick halfway stop. Consider subscribing to the channel if you're enjoying my content. Like, comment, share, all that sort of stuff. Best way to help me out, guys, is watch the videos through as long as you can bear. And yeah, once again, engage with it. That helps me get me out there, gets the channel growing, and I appreciate all you people who regularly watch my channel. All right. Good old Andrew Bolt. Some love him, some hate him.
Start this country's pretty anemic economy just ended day two with still more nothing, or nothing that anyone can tell, because unbelievably cameras and journalists have been banned. But there have been some very good ideas from outside that round table, ideas the government doesn't want to hear. Now first, former Reserve Bank Governor very interestingly said the government had lost spending restraint.
COVID came and
blew everything away.
We had to spend, and then after COVID, we haven't really got back to kind of a clearly articulated framework for decision making with fiscal policy. It seems to be.
Yeah, because Labor's in. So this is what you get. This is what you voted for, and this is what you get. Gee, man, don't bag Labor. Liberal is just as bad. I don't vote for any of them. My biggest challenge is Liberal or Labor, who's coming last when I'm at the ballot. Labor don't have a good track record with fiscal management. Look where we are now. Pissing up money against the wall, hand over fist. It wouldn't matter if you gave them $50 trillion. I'd find a way to spend it and put you into debt.
Well, if there's a need, we'll spend. And for a while, that's okay, but we shouldn't be in that world forever. And as we've come out of COVID in pretty good circumstances, I think it's now time for the government to reimpose some discipline on.
And the Alternative Summit, today organised by National Senator Matt Canavan, a summit that is open to the public, in fact, it's been broadcast on Sky News Extra, honed in on the government's disastrous crusade for green energy.
Low-cost energy has traditionally played an important...
All right, we just saw that. I reckon we go over here.
Does that seem to be a message the government should actually hear?
Oh, it's a message they won't hear because, as I've said on many occasions, their DNA is, their economic DNA is around taxing and spending and wasting money. Look, it's good that they're not letting the public into that because what I see there is fully paid up members of the old IR club. You know, you've got the unions in there that represent 8% of the population of the private sector workforce, and you've even got the business groups that represent even less of the business community. And all the policy advisors, you look around that table, as you can see on the screen, they've been around for years, you know, and they're fully paid up members of the Net Zero Club. Look, the solution to this, of course, is not rocket science. Any decent economist and any decent follower of public policy knows what's required to get productivity. The problem is this government can't even define productivity, has no agenda in relation to doing anything, and worse still, is doing everything in its first term it did, actually has made the situation worse. As I've said on many occasions, they re-regulated the labour market, which reduced labour productivity. They increased, waste and costs, and increased that through subsidies to renewables and the net zero dream. As well as that, you've got tax reform. They don't understand it. There's no discussion about tax indexation, which is absolutely critical to get incentive back into the economy. In fact, all they're looking at, as far as I can see, Andrew, is a way to get some sort of cover for some very short, quick tax increases to do some minor budget repair. I think it's a farce, the whole thing. And, I expect nothing more out of this government than we got in the last term, and that's more tax, spend and waste.
Spot on, mate. I should be the treasurer. I just say the exact same things as good old Michael Costa here. Laying him on, mate. He wasn't holding back. He just gave him the elbow drop across the throat. Well done. Off the top turnbuckle. If anyone... I sometimes hear people say, because I've been talking to people and I said, they're considering potentially raising the GST. We get... they're going to raise taxes on businesses and blah, blah, blah. I have these conversations. I just rant into the void. on YouTube. A lot of people say to me, "Oh no, but that's good. You got to pay your tax. Tax is good. We have our roads because we pay our tax, and we have our hospitals because we pay our tax." Like, are you serious? So hang on, you want to be bled dry for the government to spend all your hard-earned tax dollars and not show you a benefit at all? I don't get it. I'm going to leave it there, guys. I'm going to leave it there. I don't think I've got any more to say on this topic apart from the economy is an absolute basket case. Labor have blown it up. And I'm not looking forward to seeing what happens over the next few years, because I think it's going to get a lot worse, unfortunately. And you know what? People will vote Labor in again. So I guess you get what you vote for. All right, guys. See you in the next one.